Today is Saturday, March 30th. Voters have said immigration is a top issue for them this election year. And however you feel about possible solutions, most everyone agrees the system is in crisis and has been for years. The number of illegal border crossings has reached record highs. There continues to be a massive backlog in the asylum system. And for now, at least, efforts in Congress have stalled. Plus, a controversial new law in Texas is adding to the confusion as it gets passed around in the courts. And let's be honest, this issue can be confusing and complex. It prompts a lot of headlines and fear, but you might not always get the full story or background or context. So today, the woman known as America's government teacher is here to help remind us of a few of the basics about U.S. immigration laws and share what's going on with one of the most high-profile court cases right now. You might know Sharon McMahon from Instagram, where she educates more than 1 million followers about government, history, and politics on her account, Sharon Says So. She's also the host of the hit podcast, Here's Where It Gets Interesting. And she has a new book coming out this September that you can pre-order now, called The Small and the Mighty, 12 Unsung Americans Who Changed the Course of History from the Founding to the Civil Rights Movement. Today, Sharon McMahon is offering her government and history expertise to explain what America's laws really say, who has the power to do anything about the crisis at the border, and much more. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Sharon McMahon, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So you are known as America's government teacher. Let's start with a few basics about the government when it comes to immigration. One of the things that has really stood out is the number of people seeking asylum in the U.S. It's gone up significantly in recent years. Can you give us a brief explanation of who is eligible for asylum?
So asylum is seeking refuge, essentially, in another country. Most countries have some form of asylum laws, including the United States, seeking refuge from a situation that the person believes is potentially life-threatening or will be exceptionally harmful to them in the place that they're coming from. So this could be seeking asylum from something like political violence, persecution because of religion, or because of their ethnicity. There's a variety of reasons why somebody may try to apply to seek asylum. And our current asylum rules require, in most cases, there are a few exceptions, but they require that somebody actually be in the United States to seek asylum.
And once they're here and they've sought asylum, they can often stay until their case can proceed. And that is also controversial. Can you explain that and how long that process can sometimes take?
That's right. They, in most cases, are allowed to remain in the country while they are waiting for their asylum case to be heard. There are exceptions to this, so I don't want any listeners to feel like I'm saying this is the only way it ever is. But it's controversial because often when somebody is waiting for their asylum case to be heard, it is very, very difficult to support yourself. It is difficult to obtain employment, although it can be possible. Now, here is the tricky part. It does not just mean that you enter the United States, go to a court, apply for asylum, get your case heard in the next month or two, have an asylum judge or an immigration judge make a determination on your eligibility to remain in the United States. This process can take 5 to 10 years to get an initial hearing. And that is not an exaggeration. That is not an, only outside chances. These are the stated wait times from immigration courts. I'm not talking about 5 to 10 years to become a citizen. I mean to get your asylum case heard. And so that indicates an extreme overwhelm of the system when we have so many people seeking asylum and so few judges to hear their cases. So while they're waiting, what happens then? That is really one of the big questions that the United States is grappling with right now.
And so what is the role of the federal government, whether that be Congress, different departments that are part of the federal government versus the role of the states, and who gets to decide some of these things?
That's a great question, and a question that is also controversial, a question that is currently being played out in the courts right now, because the state of Texas, for example, does not feel that the federal government is doing an adequate job in enforcing immigration rules. And so they have decided that they are going to take matters into their own hands, so to speak, in some regards when it comes to immigration. For example, they have passed a law saying that they are going to make it possible for Texas law enforcement to arrest somebody who is determined to be in the country illegally and to either incarcerate them or to deport them. So traditionally, the federal government of the United States has been the group that is in charge of our immigration laws. And the reason for that is that it is not technically, legally, a border between Texas and Mexico. It is a border between the United States and Mexico. And so the United States, the federal government, has always been in charge of immigration policies, the enforcement of immigration rules, immigration courts. These have all been under the purview of the federal government. Well, now you're seeing states like Texas begin to push back on this idea, saying, yeah, it might be your job, but you're not doing your job. That's their perspective. You're not doing your job. And so we're going to do the job that you are not doing. And so what courts have said is like a ping pong match. It's gone ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, for lack of a better term, whether or not this law can be enforced. So these are not final rulings. They have not heard any kind of oral arguments on these cases. These are emergency rulings about whether a law can go into effect before they have a chance to hear the case fully.
Yeah, and to your point, to be clear, the Supreme Court has not yet addressed whether this Texas law is constitutional. It's just can it go on while it's playing out in the courts, as you mentioned.
That's right. Exactly.
Do you have a take on Texas and the Justice Department and kind of that back and forth?
I think it's difficult to make an argument that states can pass laws that usurp or undermine the authority of the federal government. The real interesting legal question here is, are states allowed to quote unquote pick up the slack when they perceive that the federal government is not doing their job? That is the perhaps more novel legal question.
So what happened to that bipartisan bill in Congress that tried to address this issue? And what role can the president actually play when it comes to what happens at the border? Sharon McMahon is answering those questions and weighing in on why immigration is such an important issue for American voters this year, including the role fear is playing on both sides of the aisle. We continue our conversation just ahead. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. I know I feel better overall when I get outside and I get active. But when I don't have the right gear, especially when the weather is unpredictable this spring, it's harder to live that life that I really want. And that's why I'm sort of obsessed now with my Vessi shoes. I have 2 pairs, and I'm literally wearing at least one of them every day because Vessis are so comfortable, they're easy to get on and off when I'm on the go, and they are super stylish. I love how they look. Plus, get this, they're also 100% waterproof. And I really turn to my Stormburst high tops when I'm ready for a bit more adventuring out and about. They are so versatile, though. I can wear them for everyday errands and getting things done, or taking them into the elements, from beach days to walking around the city to a rainy day hike. Elevate your spring wardrobe with Vessi's Stormburst shoes. Discover more at vessi.com/newsworthy. Get your pair today to get an automatic 15% off your first purchase at checkout and be ready to step out in style, rain or shine. Trust me, you will not regret this. Go to vessi.com/newsworthy to get your new favorite shoes with an automatic 15% off your first purchase at checkout. This episode is also brought to you by OneSkin. It is spring now, and I thought it was interesting to learn that our skin goes through a big transition between seasons, not just on the surface, but at the cellular level. So yes, protecting our skin against the sun's UV rays is important, but so is nurturing our skin even beyond that. OneSkin's products actually work from the inside out with their scientifically proven peptide called OS1. And I love when there's good data to back a product up. In a third-party 12-week clinical study performed by third-party research organization, OS1 Face, which I use every morning and night, by the way, was clinically proven to strengthen the skin barrier, improve skin health markers, and diminish visible signs of aging. Wrinkles were diminished in 87% of users. And I can share that my personal experience aligns. I can truly tell the difference in how my skin looks and feels after just a few months of using it twice a day. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please be sure to support our show and tell them we sent you. Help your skin stay younger and healthier for longer with OneSkin. Okay, now back to my conversation with Sharon McMahon. A recent Gallup poll found that immigration is the top issue for voters right now. And a record high 55% of U.S. adults cited illegal immigration as a critical threat to the U.S. interests. What role, I want people to know, because it's a presidential election year, what role does a president play and what impact can they have when it comes to immigration law?
You often hear candidates make statements that are sort of wish lists of like, here's what I would do if I was president, when in reality, they don't actually have the power to do that thing. So yours is a great question, Erica. What can a president actually do? The first thing is that a president can push Congress to make laws, especially if the Congress is relatively aligned ideologically with the president. They have far greater power to push Congress to pass laws that do things like reform the system. For example, President Biden has a lot of sway with Democrats in Congress. If a Republican were to be elected, they would have a lot of sway with Republicans in Congress. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that presidents are almost exclusively in charge of foreign policy. Most of the undocumented immigrants that we are seeing coming to the United States right now are not coming from Mexico. They are not Mexican citizens. They are coming from other countries in the Caribbean, other countries in Central America. A president's relationship with the leaders of all of those countries, that is almost exclusively under their jurisdiction. What kind of deals do they want to make with those leaders, for example? That can have a lot to do with immigration. Another thing that's possible is that they can direct federal agencies like Customs and Border Protection. They can direct them to do certain types of things. They can enact certain types of policies. And we saw this happen with Title 42 during the Trump administration, which was a pandemic era response to immigration. Presidents can sway public opinion. They can direct federal agencies to do certain things. One of the limitations of the president's power when it comes to immigration, however, is that short of Congress appropriating funds, they don't have the ability to spend a lot of money. So a president cannot say, I'm going to hire 10,000 more immigration judges, unless Congress also agrees and appropriates the money for that sort of thing.
And we did see Congress consider what was called a bipartisan bill for immigration, and it ultimately failed in Congress. Do you expect something else to come up anytime soon and Congress to be able to get anything done?
It's going to continue to come up because both parties know that this is an important topic. Right now, with the Republicans trying to take back the White House, they benefit more strategically from the system being in somewhat disarray. Which is one of the reasons that the recent bipartisan bill failed to move forward. That's not my opinion. That is what some members of Congress actually said. Democrats are going to try to hammer Republicans on the fact that they are trying to pass immigration laws to make things better, and Republicans are not cooperating. That's going to be something you're going to see in the Democratic messaging. There's no question that both parties are going to come out strong on this topic, and they're going to do it from different strategic vantage points, and they're both going to try to use it to damage the other side.
Why overall do you think this has become such an important issue to so many people?
In some cases, like in the state of Texas, the challenges that some communities face from large numbers of migrants coming across the border, they're very real challenges with public infrastructure, with things like education, with housing. They are facing some very real challenges. I do think that there is a public sentiment that is perhaps afraid of something like an invasion occurring. You sometimes hear that language being used in the news, that there is an invasion occurring at the southern border. And being invaded is not a concept that a lot of people feel comfortable with. So if you view it as an invasion, that feels very scary to you. There is also, for some Americans, a fear of losing a way of life. There's a fear of, America changing. There's a fear of America having to alter who it is to be able to accommodate large numbers of immigrants. For other Americans, there is a fear that some people are being racist towards people who are trying to enter the United States, because most of them are coming from, as I mentioned, the Caribbean and Central America. There's a fear of why are we being racist towards this group? Why are we being so exclusionary when America is a nation of immigrants? So both sides have fears. And that is, anytime you can inject fear into a topic, it becomes very motivating to people.
And I imagine in an election year, it's going to be talked about even more by both parties because they know that it's getting people's attention.
That's right.
Final thoughts about immigration, or what do you want to leave our audience with after discussing this?
There is nobody out there that I'm aware of who believes everything is working great. I'm talking about immigration lawyers, judges, anybody who with any familiarity. Immigrants themselves will tell you the system is very broken. And it needs to be fixed. There's no question about that. We cannot continue on the trajectory that we are currently on. Now, how to fix it, of course, is up for debate. But I do think that one issue that both sides agree on is that we have a significant undercapacity problem. It's a little bit like saying, well, we don't want there to be any knives on planes anymore. Knives on planes are illegal. And we're going to create this agency that's going to screen bags to make sure there's no more knives on planes, right? So we create TSA. Well, what would happen if we only hired 20 TSA agents for the entire country to ensure there were no knives on planes? We would all agree that's not nearly enough, right? That is not enough to screen all the passengers. So increasing the capacity of the immigration system, particularly when it comes to immigration judges and other law enforcement officials, is a critical component of leading to more stability in the system. Everyone wants an immigration system that is fair, that is stable, and that is sustainable. And if we want to see those goals realized, we do have to increase the capacity. We cannot continue on this trajectory.
Well, now that we have you all caught up on our laws and the current situation, we want to dig in a bit more about possible solutions to the border crisis next Saturday. Be sure to join us here for a Part 2 Special Edition Saturday episode where another expert guest explains what's really needed to fix the problem that many Americans and perhaps even congressional members do not understand. In the meantime, be sure to follow America's favorite government teacher, Sharon McMahon, on her viral Instagram account, Sharon Says So, and check out her podcast, Here's Where It Gets Interesting. Plus, pre-order her upcoming book now, The Small and the Mighty. She's proving that the most remarkable Americans are often ordinary people who did not make it into the textbooks. And of course, follow us here, the Newsworthy Podcast, in your podcast app for 10-minute news roundups every Monday through Friday as well. We're keeping you in the know every day, so we'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.